All right, so here we go. We are jumping in for the second part of our project. So I'm going to do another mid-tone gray. I'm going to go ahead and grab another kind of darker gray to draw with. Now, I have the picture of this samurai warrior off on the side on my iPad, so I'm going to drawing it that way. Um, but you can see I'm going through and I'm thinking about the same stuff that we talked about in the first drawing. I'm trying to freehand sketch his overall composition. Right now, everything I'm sketching right now is going to get drawn over and erased anyway, so do not worry about perfection, okay? What I'm looking for is trying to figure out where's the side of his face, where's the front of his face, where are his eyes located, where's the bridge of his nose. I'm just kind of placing things. And he's going to look like a kind of weird geometric robot guy, and honestly, that's fine, who cares, right? Once I've completed the sketch and I'm happy with it, I'm just going to drop the opacity like you see there. And I'm going to go ahead and switch over, and now I'm thinking about just the shadow shapes. So I'm really kind of zooming in on my iPad on the side here, but I'm zooming in on his face, and I'm asking myself, what is a heavy black shadow and what is not? So just like we did for our black and white picture, I have to decide what is going to be black, what is going to be white. Now we're going to add some values, some medium grays and stuff to this in a little bit, but for right now, I'm still going through the same process that we went through with our black and white movie still. So anywhere that I feel there needs to be a heavy shadow, I'm making a shape and I'm coloring it in. And notice again, it's still kind of transparent, right? I still have the opacity on my brush turned down because all of this is going to get drawn over. This is all just kind of a sketch. Okay? Again, it's not about perfection, it's about thinking in shapes. So use a bigger brush, kind of apply these shapes, and think about where the shadows are, where the highlights are, and start to kind of find those a little bit on your picture. Now I'm using little X's to remind myself to color those in later on so I can just kind of keep sketching because I want to go quickly. When you're drawing these pictures, at this stage, I don't want you taking very long. This entire painting that you're going to do here, this entire kind of finished drawing, should take you maybe 2 hours total. And you don't have to do it in one sitting, of course, but it should not take you all that long, right? So you start with the initial kind of sketch. You go ahead and you kind of start placing those heavy shapes and shadows. And it's Photoshop, right? So I realized right there that like his eye wasn't in the right place. So I just moved it. I selected it and I copy and pasted and moved it. So at this point, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to make another layer and start coloring these heavy shadow shapes in. Again, I'm going to use a much bigger brush, a really hard-edged brush. I'm not worried about blending anything. I'm just coloring these shadow shapes in. And he's got some pretty wild hair, so I'm going to let little strands and things kind of hang out on the side. If I don't like them, I'll fix them up later. And you can tell how every time I make a new layer, a new layer, a new layer, and the reason for that is very simple, right? The idea is that I want to draw these shadow shapes, but I also want to be able to kind of ink them in later on. If this was real life, I would draw with a pencil, and then I'd use like a big heavy Sharpie marker or something to fill in these shapes, and then I just erase my marker, or excuse me, erase my pencil, right? I'm doing the exact same thing here in Photoshop. It's not about perfection. It's not about getting it right the first time. It's about layering these designs. It's about kind of coming up and making sure that everything flows, everything works. So again, I'm just filling in this overall kind of shadowy shape. And notice the shadow that I'm using right now is still not a pure black. It's kind of like a dark gray. There's a reason for that, and that is simply there are very few things in this world that are pure white and pure black, and if we need to add those, we can add them at the very end as kind of small accents. So I'm going to kind of lighten in here. I messed up, so I'm going to erase that out real quick. I'm going to kind of figure out this eye that's really heavily shadowed. And yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm just using the eraser tool real quick to kind of give the little whites of his eyes. Put on some more little threads, little wispy hairs. I'm just using a smaller paintbrush at this point. And that looks pretty cool, right? So I've got a medium gray background, a really heavy shadow for his shadow shapes, and now I'm going to grab a highlight. Now, we talked about this once before, but if you want to make something pop, you make the background of the darkest side lighter, so it creates a juxtaposition. So the shadow side of his face has white in the background. I'm going to add some of this kind of light, kind of medium white color on the highlighted side as well, just like so. And that automatically, I mean, already, wow, that adds a whole lot of life to this picture. Just that little bit of heavy shadow, that little bit of highlight, and that little bit of medium tone. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to start adding on some pure dark blacks. And I'm going to use this, again, to really accentuate. So I've got my medium gray background, my kind of dark gray shadow shapes. I've got black anywhere that I need like a really heavy shadow, and then I've got this kind of off-white anywhere that I need to highlight, right? Now, as I'm going along, I'm going to find that, I think maybe this black that I'm using is a little bit too heavy for what I'm going for, so I'm actually going to kind of lighten it up a little bit, and I'm just going to use my layers, my adjustment layers, to kind of lighten the opacity on that particular layer. But overall, again, the more shadows you can add, the better it's going to look. So I'm just going to lighten that opacity just a little bit, just a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to use some black to really kind of darken in that background and put some extreme kind of detailing in there. So the black isn't so much an outline as it is this quick little touch-up. You should not have a lot of white. You should not have a lot of pure black. Those are just for quick little accessories, quick little tiny pieces that you want to embellish. Otherwise, it should mostly be kind of a medium gray and a dark gray. So now I'm going to throw on some pure white. And again, this is really tiny little wispies, the whites of his eyes, and that's kind of it. All right, now he looks pretty aggressive. So at this point, I'm happy with it. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to change that layer's mode to color mode, okay? Just like I did there. Change that layer mode to color mode. And now, whatever I paint onto the layer that is in color mode, the blend mode is set to color, anything that I do here will automatically saturate those grays. So instead of having to paint in full color like we just did for our state painting, now I can paint in black and white and then add color to it. So I'm going to play around with these colors, and almost like you're staining the paper, right? I'm almost kind of like adding a wash or like a watercolor over top of this black and white drawing. Whenever I'm all done, I want to add a little excitement to the picture. So I'm going to put some beet red. This is a samurai warrior. If you haven't seen the movie Lone Wolf and Cub, definitely check it out. That's what this guy's from. It's a super fun movie. And I'm just going to kind of play around. I want it to look like some blood is splattered on him there. Oh yeah, wow, that is an intense looking picture. All right, enjoy guys.